Welcome to Fabric. My name is Angela Johnson, and I am the co-founder here at Fabric. I'm also the co-founder of the nonprofit here at Fabric called Arizona Apparel Foundation. I'm also the founder of a directory for Arizona's fashion industry called Label Hoard, and I'm a designer of a collection called Angela Johnson. And I'm kind of a fashion industry advocate for Arizona. So you are actually, sitting in Fabric right now. Fabric is a fashion incubator. Does anybody know what that means? Yeah, it houses everything. So it houses everything that a business would need to actually operate, a fashion business. So it's helping these businesses get started. It's providing the resources that they actually need in order to make their product and stay here in Arizona. And this place offers more than any other fashion incubator in the rest of the country. We can't find anything else like this in the rest of the country. There are really no other places that do everything that we do here. So this is unique to the whole entire country, which is a really cool thing to be able to say, right? When we look all over and we try to find, and we can't really find anybody that does half of what we do. So it's really, really exciting for us, and we feel like we're reinventing what the 21st century designer can do and what that looks like as a business, because there's like this old school model that has been the same for so long that we're looking to reinvent. So here in this building, that's what we do. We've actually helped hundreds of fashion designers since opening this place. So there have been about 340 or more brands that have been started here. People have come here, 340 different people with unique ideas that wanted to create something to fill a niche, and they needed resources to actually do that, have come here and have used these resources and have grown businesses and have stayed here in Arizona. And that, to me, is the whole goal. I mean, that's really what we want to do. We want to keep business here in Arizona, and we want to provide all these resources. And there should be places like this all over the country where people can find all the resources they need to be able to do this. So hopefully one day this will be a model that spreads throughout the country and we can reinvent everything. This place it's also done a lot of really cool things with the help of our foundation. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that in a minute. The event tonight is actually called Behind the Seams because we're looking at what it took to produce this space tonight and what it took to become a fashion designer for my own story. But this is going to happen every single month, and it's going to be the last Thursday of every month, and you're going to hear stories from people in the community that have done it. And so if you're a designer and you want to do it too, you can hear what route they took and what mistakes they made. If you're a fashion marketing person, or you want to be one, you're going to be able to hear stories from experts who do that. If you want to be, a professional hairstylist, I mean, we're going to have everybody in the fashion industry that are doing it come here and actually share their stories. So it's an educational thing that you guys can all hear what it took, what mistakes were made, what they would have done differently, and you can learn from those lessons. And that's the idea of this place, is this is a place that it's community, and we all come together and we help each other, because if somebody makes it in Arizona and becomes the next, I don't know, Alexander McQueen or something, then we all make it. It helps everybody. It helps put us on the map. So we really want to support each other and help each other. And that's why this event is going to happen, so that you can see that Arizona has a significant fashion industry, and that the people who are making it happen are here in this building, and they are experts from all over the nation doing things in this industry. In fact, we have people in this room that are experts that are providing things to help other designers. We have one in the back there. Her name's Kate, and she's right there with the blonde hair. Wave, Kate. Kate is our production manager here. She worked for Forever 21 and Target, and now she's here helping brands navigate the complexities of apparel manufacturing. She's come back to Arizona from Los Angeles, gained all the experience, and now she's helping other people do that. She's a valuable resource right here in our building that has real industry experience. And so those are the stories you're going to hear, and you're going to learn from every single person that's here. So it feels a little awkward, me having an event about myself. But the reason I'm doing it is because I really want to launch it to show kind of what you're going to expect for the rest of the events. And I'm going to interview each person going forward so I can ask them the right questions and that they can really share the stuff that we all really want to know. Not that fluffy stuff that everybody says, oh yeah, I did this, it was really easy, blah, blah. What was hard? Why did that happen to you? What could you have done differently and things like that? So that's kind of what behind the scenes is. And this is all made possible because we have a nonprofit here called Arizona Apparel Foundation. That is the nonprofit that is giving back to the community. We give back in programs and services that value what would be the rent in this building. This is a City of Tempe building. This is a unique model. They let us use their building, and in exchange, we give back to the community. We provide all kinds of free and low discounted rates on services and things that they need to run their businesses. There's a free sourcing library here. There's nothing like that in the country. You can come in for free, and you can look up and find all the wholesale fabric vendors that you want that will sell you small quantities of fabrics. That's like unheard of. It's hard to find. That's information you can't even Google, and it's right here in our in our place. So it's actually a very valuable resource, and so that's all because this foundation is here. So if you appreciate what we're doing here and you want to help us keep this going, please volunteer. We have 550 registered volunteers that help make this place happen. You can actually help us run the front desk. You can actually paint a wall. You can actually help backstage at an event. You can actually set up and tear down these chairs at the end of the night. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we do here, but that's part of being a community and doing this together. And so we really need your help, and there's a lot of other things that you can do to help make this possible too. So we'll talk about that in a little bit, but let's talk about me. So awkward, you guys. When I was putting this together, I was like, oh my God, it feels so weird, like it feels very selfish to be explaining all this. But the real core reason to this is because I love teaching. I love sharing my experiences. I feel like that's what the whole world should do, and I don't think the fashion industry is real known for that. I don't think a lot of people want other people to succeed, and I don't think that you get treated very fairly when you're new and you enter this industry and you just need help and no one's there to really help you, and then you see shows like TV shows that I probably can't say it for videotaping, but there's fashion designers doing competitions and then they're getting scolded for doing something wrong and they're crying on the runway and stuff like that. That shouldn't be the way that life is. We should all be helping each other. So I wanted to teach and share. And what I do every day here is teach. I'm the consultant. I teach everybody how to go through the process. And so this is me teaching you guys what I did to be able to put this building together and what I did to be able to create my clothing line, because I feel like it's going to help a lot of the people in the audience who want to start their own clothing line and a lot of people in the audience who want to be a part of this community and contribute to it. You can understand kind of what it took to do that and really, what mistakes I made and everything. So we're going to start with my background. So let me make sure I know where I am in this. Okay, so a lot of people, anybody here want to be a fashion designer or already are fashion? If you want to be or you already are, put your hand up. Okay, awesome. So did you want to be a fashion designer from the minute you were born? Did you know about it when you were like 5? Yeah, did you start getting interested in it when you were in high school maybe and playing around with drawing things and stuff like that? Okay, everybody's got a story about what their story is, how they got into this, right? Well, when my story started, I didn't know what I wanted to be. In fact, I was kind of lost, I think. And I went all through high school. There was a fashion program in my school. I didn't even know about it. I went to college. I went to NAU, and I got my degree in speech communication. I didn't even think about being a fashion designer. There was one time when my mother asked me what I wanted to be, and she wrote in a book that's, what do you want to be when you grow up? And so each year I wrote something different. I want to be an oceanographer. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be an actress. And I want to be a fashion designer, was, I think, 4th grade. So it was a little thing that passed by once, and I didn't even think about it. Then I get this degree in speech communication. So I'm at NAU, great, I got this degree. I know how to public speak. I'm doing it right now. I'm actually using a lot of those tools right now, and I use it every day in teaching. But what am I going to talk about? I'm not an expert in anything, so I really don't have any stories to tell or anything. So I thought, well, maybe I need to go back to school and really figure out what my passion is and what is my passion. And I started to do those little online quizzes, or not online, there was no online. I started to do those little quizzes in the Career Center that ask you what you want to be when you grow up, and everything pointed to fashion. And I was like, now that I think about it, I really thought I was lost, but all my life, I've been dressing in a unique way. I've been being sent home from school for not wearing enough clothing. I've been making a statement with things that like are fashion related. People are like, what? Like the other day, you're wearing chickens in your ears? Those are the kind of things like I've been doing my entire life. And I would go in my grandmother's closet, and my grandfather was U.S. District Attorney, and we were stationed in the Panama Canal Zone when I was growing up. My grandmother would put on these governor dinners and things like that. And so she had wardrobe closets filled with fancy gowns and things from the 50s and 60s, and she kept everything. She's kind of a bit of a hoarder. And so I lived with my grandparents growing up, and I was in her closet taking out these clothes and chopping off the sleeve and wearing them with combat boots, and and she was like, okay, that's what you want to do to my dress. As long as somebody's wearing it, I'm cool with that. And so I realized, I've been into fashion this whole time, but nobody told me that that was a career. Nobody told me I could actually do something and make a living off of doing it. It seemed like a pipe dream, like you have to, what do you have to do to become like a rock star? Well, kind of the same thing for a fashion designer. So I didn't even think about it. And then finally after the career quiz, they said, well, you could go to college for that. And I was like, okay, going back to college, let's do it again. And so I headed to Los Angeles and I went to the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising. By the way, that's my grandparents, so pretty hip, right? That dress my grandma's wearing is red leather, and they're in Greece. So they always did some pretty cool things, and she always made a statement with everything that she wore. In fact, one time in her closet, I pulled out a sweater, and the sweater had knitted little roads on it, and the roads had actual metal cars sewn onto them. That's the kind of person that she was. So I think I get a unique perspective from these guys. So I decided to go to the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, and I had never sewn a stitch in my life. I did not know how to draw a human figure. I didn't know anything about how clothing was made. I thought, well, don't you just come up with really cool ideas and then you like type it into some machine and like a Dr. Seuss kind of, this happens and poof, there's a dress. I designed a dress and a machine spit it out. I had like literally no clue what went into it. So in school, I'm taking classes. Some of the classes were 6 hours a day. Pattern making class was 6 hours long, okay? And it was multiple days a week. And it was an entire year. And like there were so many things to know, and it was geometry, and it was a lot of math, and it was a lot harder than I expected. It was architecture and engineering, and I was like, oh my God, this really takes a lot. I had no idea. I thought it was going to be easy, I thought I was coloring pictures really all day, and it was a lot harder than I thought. But that time I was in school taught me everything that I would need to know to construct clothing and gave me the foundation so that I could start my journey. And that school, actually, the Career Center, helped me find my first job, and like every other job I ever had. So it was a real valuable thing. And I can't say enough for education. Really, if you have a passion about something, you should educate yourself about it, whether it is official, formal education, or it's coming to a place like this and getting the down and dirty, like quickie, the real stuff that you have to know, or whether it's YouTubing things. I mean, my son learns everything from YouTube, and he's a genius in physics. So you can have a lot of different routes to things to learn things, and you just have to learn those things. So this place gives you all kinds of education. This is the core of what we do here. We take what they don't teach you in school, the things I didn't learn, like tech packs. What are tech packs? They're blueprints of your design. Like if you have a house made, you need a tech pack, or it's a kind of a tech pack. It's architectural blueprints, and it's a project manager that takes it through the whole process. And when you're a designer, you need all of that. And if you don't know that stuff, then you can't even approach a manufacturer. So you can't even make your clothing. And so learning those things is really important, and that's the stuff that we teach here. We try to get people to get a quickie route through, so you don't have to learn everything. You're not the one sewing it here, so you don't need to take that. You don't even need to make those patterns that I was talking about. We have the experts here. Our pattern maker has worked for Gap and Athleta and places like that. Let her do that work, She's really good at it. But we're the ones that we're going to teach you how to manage your production. So that's what the education should look like if you're a designer that isn't in school and you want to understand what that process is. And that's what we do here. But I couldn't do that without, having gone through my journey. So we're going to learn about the journey. So they helped me find my first job. My first job was, as a result, is when I was in NAU and I was in school and I was I was a snowboarder. So I basically would snowboard every other day and on the weekend. So I made my classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I could go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday and go snowboarding. But this was early 90s, so 1990, 91, 92. There was no clothing for me. Like, women didn't snowboard. There were no other girls on the slopes besides a couple others, right? And so I was wearing like my boyfriend's clothes, or literally I wore fireman pants because I found them at a thrift store. They looked kind of cool, and this is when baggy pants were in, and so they were giant, and I was like, oh, if they're fire retardant, they're probably cold retardant too, which turns out they were, but that wasn't the most fashionable thing, right? So I thought, when I was in school, wouldn't it be cool if there was a girls' snowboard line? I mean, maybe skate, snow, surf, because I was into that culture and everything, and so it turned out when I graduated from school, and actually in school, we had to create projects. So there were always these projects like of designing collections, and literally every week we designed an entire collection, and it would take me, I mean, not sewed it all, but we would draw all the flats and do all the mood boards and pick all the fabrics and like put everything all together in a presentation at the same time as you're making patterns in another class and sewing things in another class and doing, it's a lot. But so I was basically thinking in school, I'm going to design this collection that I wished I had when I was in college. And I created this one presentation under this collection called Monkey Wench. And it was very 1990s, because that was when this happened. So think 1990s. What was going on in the 90s? Girl power, right? So there was a lot of like statement girl things, you know, a lot of brands starting like Roxy and stuff. So Quicksilver had been around forever, and then there's Roxy. And just funny girl names for things, like there was a clothing line out there called Broads, and another one called Dames, and you know, things like that. So I was like, oh, Monkey Wench, that's kind of cool. And I like just kind of funky names, as you can tell, Label Horde, you know, a little play on words. So I basically created this collection and then put it away, and then I graduated, and then I started working for a company, and this company is called X Girl, and they have a partner called X Large. And I, in college, had been watching MTV. Do you guys remember MTV? Oh, yeah. Some of you are too young to even know what it is, but a lot of you can relate. So watching MTV, and there was a fashion show, and it was really something I had never seen before. It was a streetwear fashion show. And Kim Gordon from Sonic Youth, anybody ever heard of Sonic Youth? Sonic Youth is like a punk band, and back in the 80s and 90s and stuff. And she basically started a clothing line called X Girl, and they did a fashion show, like just a pop-up in New York City right on the street. It was like this guerrilla-style fashion show. And it was nothing like I had ever seen before. It was really cool. And I thought, oh my God, I love that line. That is so cool. But I don't even know how to like find it. It was very underground and cool, you know? So when I graduated from school, I went to the Career Center, and I said, the place I want to work is called X Girl. And they looked through all their stuff, and they couldn't find anything called X Girl. And so I started to research and everything, and I found that it was connected to a company called X Large. And X Large is, you know, the Beastie Boys? Do you remember the Beastie Boys? So Mike Diamond of the Beastie Boys had a partnership with these two guys in this clothing brand called X Large. And X Large manufactured streetwear. And it was like they were on the beginning of the like music-inspired men's baggy pants streetwear kind of thing in the early 90s, right? They were the first ones doing that, really. And so I was like, oh yeah, I've heard of that company. I didn't really know they were connected. And so I asked, hey, can you get me in an interview? They called up, they happened to be hiring, and I walked in and they looked at my portfolio and they hired me on the spot. And they said it was because they knew I knew what I was doing because I went to FIDM and they train you right over there apparently. And so I got my job because of that. And so what was my job? Well, I thought this was gonna be glamorous, but it's not. So what I did every day was I sat in a warehouse that we didn't really have AC, so it was kind of sweatshop-y, but not really. So I'm sweating though, and I'm cutting out patterns and I'm cutting out samples. I was what's called a cutter. The cutter is the person who's cutting out, so the pattern maker makes the pattern, and then you have to cut it out of the fabric, and then you give it to the sample maker who's going to sew it up, right? So I'm cutting out all the samples so that they could sew it up. Also, when the pattern maker makes the pattern, they make it on like a soft paper, and it's not going to withstand the manufacturing process, so they put it on a hard paper. So I would take the soft paper and cut it out onto the hard paper. And so then I had to add all the information on the pattern and punch the notches into it and the punch holes and the grain lines and all that. And so I was bending over a table like this all day, every single day. And I'm cutting paper with like stacks like this, manila paper, because there's multiple layers on pockets and things, and I'm cutting through like this. And then I'm cutting out jeans for samples, and sometimes we'd need 10 samples. So I'd layer like denim like this, and I'd cut it like this because the scissors had giant like arms on them. And then by the end of the day, I was swollen and my hand was red and poofy and like my neck hurt so bad I couldn't move. And it was a lot of manual labor that I had not counted on. And so I was a little bit miserable during that cutting part. And I think they knew that. And so they started giving me little things to do that were a lot more fun. So I started becoming like the assistant designer. And I got to help with figuring out the fabrics and, inputting that information into the tech pack. And then I would actually draw the flats because I knew how to do that from school. So I could draw these little technical drawings, which are the blueprints of your clothes that need to go onto the pattern and into the tech pack. And I would draw those, and they weren't very good now that I look back on it, but they were letting me do that, which was really awesome. And so I was getting some experience doing that and learning from the production manager who kind of took me under her wing, and she saw that I was interested in this. It turns out I'm a lot more left-brained than I am right-brained. And so if you don't know the difference, right is creative and left is analytical. I think I'm somewhere in the middle, but I think I have a little bit more of left brain. So I actually liked the tech packs. I actually liked the stuff that designers don't normally like. Designers like to draw pretty pictures and then hand it to somebody else, right? And so I was like, well, yeah, that's fun too, and I've learned to draw and I can do that, but I kind of like being OCD about everything and organized and putting it all in this paper and making sure that it happens, and I love organizing things. So it really worked out that the tech pack thing was my thing. And so I went from assistant designer to helping with like assistant production manager and doing a lot of that. Then they needed help with design, and one of the designers left and they started another collection. Grand Royal is the music company, the music label that the Beastie Boys were under, and they had a clothing line too. So I actually got to, oops, hold on. By the way, there's X-Girl, so you can kind of get a look. I actually got to help design for some of the other collections that they had. So with X-Girl was started by Kim Gordon right there, and then they had a lot of really cool models like Chloe Sevigny, that actress, back when she did the movie Kids. I mean, like right when she was starting out and stuff. And so they were really kind of undergrounding, but they had, the following of, cooler celebrities and things like that. So it was really fun and exciting. And then there's the X-Large brand, so you can kind of see the logo and everything. And like I said, they were a pioneer of the streetwear line. And the X-Large guys and Mike D and stuff had a lot of friends in the industry. And so when I'm back there cutting all day, we would have celebrities walk in and just like walk by and stop and talk to me. And so I was like kind of starry-eyed and like, this is really fun. And I'm a goofball too. So they were like, calm down, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh my God, Ice Cube is standing right next to me. Okay, well, don't make that so obvious, I'm like, do you think I could ask, maybe, like, would Mike D care if I asked for, no, don't ask for an autograph, stuff like that. So kind of learn when you're in LA, be a little cooler. So I started to mellow out a little bit, and it started to help. And then they would come up and talk to me because I wasn't annoying. I was like that young kid that was like, oh my God, can I have your autograph? And so it was kind of awesome being able to connect with some of these celebrities and everything and make some connections and be able to be like, oh my God, tonight we're going to a party with Winona Ryder and all this stuff. It was a really fun, cool kind of time in my life. And my husband got to play basketball with the Beastie Boys often and, things like that. So it was really cool. We loved our life in LA, and I was having so much fun. And then I got to do the design work, and then the production manager left, and I got to take her job. And so after she left, I was the production manager, which is the person that oversees how the clothing goes from the designer all the way through the production part. So I would take the idea, the flat, and I would get the pattern made. And then the pattern would be made, and I would take that pattern to what's called a grader. Anybody know what a grader does? Yes, yay! So grading it into different sizes. So they take the original pattern, they make it smaller or bigger until it becomes, a large, an extra large, and so on. So that's a whole nother engineering job right there. It's intense. It's not fun, but some people love it. So they would grade the pattern. Then they would take all the graded sizes and they would place them on a big piece of paper. And that piece of paper is going to save you fabric because all of those pieces are squeezed in really efficiently so that you don't waste much fabric when you cut them in production. So when you're layering that piece of paper on top of hundreds of layers of fabric, you can cut around a front, but you're cutting 100 fronts. You cut around a sleeve, but you're cutting 100 sleeves, in every size. So I would take the pattern from the grader, then I would take the grader to a place to make a marker, then I would pick up the marker, and I would have that delivered to a cutter. The cutter takes the rolls of fabric, spreads them on a giant table, takes the marker, put it on top, and cuts around it. And then you pick up the cuts. So I've got piles of fronts and backs, and I would deliver them to sewing contractors. I would go over here to this side of LA, and I would deliver it to the place that made our bathing suits. And then I'd go over here to this side of LA and deliver it to the place that made the jeans. And then go over here to this side of LA and make to the place that did the button-down shirts. And you're literally running around downtown LA all over the place to be able to manufacture clothing, because they weren't huge. They were big enough that they were well-known and profitable and selling, and they had multiple stores and things like that. But they were not like, billion-dollar brands that make hundreds of thousands of the same thing overseas. When you do that, you're actually able to make everything a lot cheaper because you're overseas where people aren't getting paid fairly. So it's kind of like slave labor. And they'll do it all for you. They'll go from the pattern making to the grading to the marking to the cutting to the sewing over there and they won't make you get your hands dirty at all. But it's because they're going to make their money by making you buy 100,000 of that one thing, or even 10,000 of that one thing. And so we couldn't meet those kind of minimums, nor did we want to hire children in Indonesia to sew our clothing, for 50 cents a day. So that's how you do it. You piece it out from place to place to avoid minimums. That's kind of the model here, by the way. We actually piece everything out separately, but it's all under one roof, and that way you become your own production manager. You don't have to have a $100,000, investment to pay an employee to do that for you. We teach you how to do that, and with the help of Kate back there, she helps make sure that happens. And then you basically piece it out under one roof. You don't have to run around downtown LA. So I did that for X Large, and I was their production manager, and I learned how to write cutting tickets and how to, order fabrics and keep track of that and put it in the tech pack and write sewing contracts and write grading and marking rules and do all of that stuff. And that was so valuable. So if you are thinking about doing this, not only should you get the education, but you should have some kind of experience. You get to really see what somebody else does wrong. Work for somebody for a little bit. Volunteer at a place. Where could that be? That you could learn those things and kind of see how the whole process works. And then you kind of know what the process is. Because without that, there's a lot of mistakes you could potentially make. You could run out of money before you even get started, because this is expensive. There's a lot of stuff you'd have to pay for along the way. Or if you needed somebody else to do it, you have to pay for them to do it. Or meet minimums overseas and things like that. So basically, I got my experience being the production manager at X Large and X Girl and Grand Royal and Mini and all the collections that they created. And then while I was working there, oh, by the way, there's a couple of their logos here. But while I was working there, I decided, you know what, I got a little free time on my hands. I don't know what's wrong with me, you guys. I never have free time, but I always think I have free time, so I add things to my plate, thus this place. So I was like, I would like to start my clothing brand. And you know what? I'm going to go back to my project from school and pull that out of the closet and look at it and be like, yeah, this is the one. So I decided to create Monkey Wench. And Monkey Wench was a streetwear line that had a board sports influence. So it was snow, skate, surf apparel for women. And the only way that I was able to start this was because, okay, at this time now, I had met my current husband, who's back there, with a big old beard and his hands up like that. So that guy was my boyfriend at the time. He worked at a ski shop, and one of the guys that worked there with him said, they were talking one day. It turns out he was telling my story and how I wanted to start a clothing line, and he was telling his girlfriend's story about how she wanted to start a clothing line. And that girl happened to be an actress on the soap opera called Days of Our Lives. And I happened to be me and had no money. So that was a perfect arrangement. So they got us together, and she was the investor. And she was the one that basically made it sure that we could go through this process and afford it and actually make some of the mistakes that we made along the way that I'll tell you about. And I was the design because I'd gone to school for it and had the experience. And then we took on a third partner, and she was actually one of my friends from design school, and she did the marketing. She created all the branding and the line sheets, which are the sales catalogs and things like that. So she did all the graphics and everything. And the three of us started this clothing brand. Now, we did make a few mistakes in the beginning. because, well, first of all, I tried to do it all. So if you're a designer and you're thinking about doing this, be willing to hire people for certain things, maybe things that you're not an expert at, okay? So in the beginning, she has money, but she doesn't have millions to do this with, so we needed to be very careful. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna design it, and then I'm going to be the production manager, and then I'm going to be the business person. Like, I'll write the business plan and get the TPT license and register the name and the RN number and get the garment contractor's license and all the things you got to do to start a business. And then I will do the sales because we can't really afford a salesperson right now. And so all of those jobs were mine for a while. Of course, my other partners helped because it was a partnership, but they were focused on their things, like paying for stuff, you know? I mean, that she has to work to be able to do that. And doing all the graphics, I can't do that. So because I was trying to do it all, I decided I'm gonna start by making our patterns. And I made the first pattern. I should never have done that because the first pattern turned out terrible. Even though I had gone to design school and I had taken all of those classes I was telling you about, I was in no way a production pattern maker that was experienced in the proper fit and the negative E's or E's that needs to be involved in the fabric that you're using to make it fit correctly and all sorts of things. So I tried real hard, but that pattern turned out real bad and didn't fit so good. And I also didn't really select the right fabric for it either because I'm still relatively new. So all that stuff that happened at X Large, that was like a 3-year thing. So going from cutter to assistant designer to production manager and everything, that was only 3 years. That's not a lot of experience to be an expert in something. So I chose the wrong fabric for our first design and it didn't turn out very good. And so I was like, you know what? Some things you just leave up to the experts. So we started hiring a pattern maker, and then that pattern maker was over here, and then we would take that pattern to the grader over here, and then we'd take it to the cutter over here, and then I would pick up the fabrics, deliver them, and running around downtown LA all over again. And so that's what it took to be able to do that. And I was working full time at X Large and X Girl at the same time. So sometimes that's what you gotta do. If you don't have, and I had an investor, but if you don't have enough of an investment, you really gotta do something to pay the bills. So unless you have a sugar mama or something like that helping you out, like you really have to do something to be able to survive, to be able to manufacture clothing. And so I figured out, you know, I will do this on the weekends and in the evenings while I work at my job 9 to 5. So didn't sleep and basically worked my butt off for a while. And then things started to go really bad for my health. Oops, don't touch that. Because, because I was bending over still. I would help out in the cutting room and I would help out here and there and stuff. And my neck and back started to become a problem. And everything started pulling on all of these muscles from bending over like that. And suddenly one day my jaw locked and I couldn't open my mouth. I'm stuck with literally this much space. I could put the tip of my finger in my mouth. And I didn't know what was going on, so going to the dentist and the doctor and all kinds of places, and they're all trying to figure out how to open it up. Turns out I had TMJ. So TMJ is like the joint gets stuck and the pad between the joint pops out and it doesn't want to pop back in. And so mine stuck out because I actually took too long to go to the doctor and it kind of formed a scar and kept it out. And so that's why my jaw was stuck. And no matter what, they would pull on it and try to adjust it and pop it back into place. They couldn't get it to get back into place and it was a nightmare. So I'm sitting there like going through this, trying to get, you know, my jaw undone. They were, at one point, I went to a chiropractor, I went to the, like literally physical therapy to yoga to, I mean like everything you can think of to possibly get this released. Turns out it was gonna need surgery. And so I had to have a surgery to go in and clean out the tendon and to clean out the joint and to release the tendon. The tendon had shrunk in the whole time that my mouth was closed. And so even if they popped it open, I couldn't open my mouth because the tendon was all short. And so I needed to get a surgery to first clean the joint, and then I needed to get a surgery to cut the tendon that holds from the top of your head down to your jaw. And so I kind of had to leave the job because I was disabled at that point. I mean, I couldn't work, I couldn't do anything. Turns out there's such thing as rotary cutters that literally are electric, and you could cut around things without having to do this. None of us knew that, so I probably could have saved myself a lot of, and when we figured that, they figured that out like after I left, and the new cutter came along and said, hey, why don't you have a rotary cutter? Oh my God, like that'd have been a lot better. So I was free to work on my own collection, and I started working on it full time, and then we ended up so we made our collections and we tried to get it into stores. Now, this is one of the biggest obstacles. After you've overcome the obstacle of where do I get fabrics? Where are they willing to sell me smaller quantities of fabrics? Because I'm only needing 100 yards. They don't really want to sell you 100 yards. They want to sell you 10,000 yards, you know? Where am I going to get zippers that match all of that fabric that are also small quantities? Where am I going to get care labels that are going to be small quantities, because I only want to make 20 smalls, 20 mediums, 20 larges, but my care labels, I need to order 10,000 of them. So do I need to order 10,000 smalls and 10,000 mediums of this one care label for this one garment, and I only need 20? Those are the things you have to encounter and you have to overcome when you're a small brand. And so dealing with all of that, and then now I got to figure out, I've accomplished that, we've figured it out, I've navigated it, I've done all the research, I've found all the fabrics everywhere, I've figured it out, and now I've got to go figure out how to sell it, because we can make it, but how do we get it in the hands of our consumer? Now this is about 1995, oh gosh, no, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, about 96, 97, something like that, and let me just make sure. Yeah, okay, and so I am unable to reach the public because there's no such thing as the internet, so I'm unable to reach the public unless I take out an ad in a magazine or I direct mail people by putting a stamp on a catalog and sending it through the mail, right? Imagine the price that goes into marketing something that way. So the thousands of dollars that have to be spent on stamps, thousands of dollars that have to be spent on printing catalogs, thousands of dollars that have to be spent just to put an ad in a magazine, thousands of dollars to put an ad in a magazine, and it's in there one time, you know? It's not continually in there year after year, and I could probably only afford like this little half-page ad that's black and white, you know? So those are the things that we had to encounter back in the 90s. No such thing as Instagram where everybody can find you, you know, and that you can reach a store anywhere and all this. So even double the obstacles that I had back then. But I overcame those obstacles, and I'll tell you a few ways that I did that. First of all, one of the things you can do to actually sell your product is find a sales rep, okay? Now, sales reps their whole thing is how do I get your stuff into a store? And then here's your orders, go ahead and make it. So that's what you want. You want somebody taking your stuff, getting pre-orders for you so you know how many to make so that you can actually manufacture it. There are sales reps in the California Market Center. So right downtown LA, you can go to a building, they're all there, and you just have to go in and convince them to carry your stuff. That's the key here. Convince them to carry your stuff because they're super picky. They want to carry the stuff they know they can sell, the stuff that already has a track record of selling. You know, they want to make sure that you're going to be able to deliver the order if they get you an order, so they need to make sure you're legit and that you're not just this fly-by-night designer that had this idea and then you don't have funding for it if you get an order and things like that. So they don't want to talk to you or give you the time of day unless you've got some sales under your belt. So it turns out that didn't work out really well. We thought it was about to work out when we found this one sales rep, and she was all telling us these great stories about how many things she's sold and places she's been in, and we were like, yes, we finally found one that's willing to take her stuff. So we gave her our sample collection. Now, sample collections cost a lot of money because my pattern maker was $300 an hour. It would take her about 5 hours to make a pattern, like the average jacket. So $1,500 for paper. I don't even have a jacket, I have paper. Then I would take that paper, hand it to the sewers, and they would actually sew it up. Now to make one took them days, so they charged me $300 to sew that one thing that should be $40, you know, normally when you manufacture it. So now I've got $1,500 pattern, $300 sewing, $1,800 for one, right? Now I've got to do that for 12 more pieces in the line. Okay, so now I've got a collection, and we've invested that money, and we have a piece of each one, and they're ready to go, and we trust this salesperson, and we hand over our beautiful collection, and she takes it, okay? So we wait, and then finally we hear back from her, and we're like so excited, because she goes, good news, I've sold the whole thing. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing! You sold it all? Yes. How much of each piece? Well, I sold them all. Well, how many did you sell of each piece? Where'd you sell them to? Oh, I went over to Mexico to this trade show thing, and I sold like every single piece in the collection. It's gone. I'm like, wait a minute. Hold on. What do you mean you sold it all? Where? It's gone? Wait, what are we talking about here? She's like, yeah, all your samples, they're totally gone. I've sold them all. She took my samples, my $1,800 pieces, and sold those pieces to somebody for the price of the wholesale price, which is like $40. Yeah, to like all the individual people. Like she was just having a trunk show or something like that. She had no idea what she was doing, and we trusted that she knew what she was doing. So we were out all of those samples. Yeah, luckily we had made a second color of each thing so that we could have samples to show, and we already had a second set of samples, and I had gone out and tried to get some orders on it, but I had to like beat the pavement and try to figure out how to get more orders on it. And so I got myself into a few stores, we had some extras and things like that. So we ended up getting some pre-orders and we made the clothes, and it was a very small run of production, and we learned our lesson. So then the next thing I did was, next season, let's show at Magic. Anybody ever heard Magic before? Good. Magic is a trade show. That's where all the buyers are going to go. That's where all the designers and brands are going to go. The brands are going to set up a mini store, and the buyers are going to come shop your mini store and place pre-orders so that you know how many to make. Now, you're competing with a lot of other people. Like, literally everyone is there. So, like, every brand you've ever heard of has a little mini store, and every buyer from every store is there. So it's a great thing, but you're right next to this giant brand who has a 3-story structure that they spent $100,000 to build for 3 days. So you got to figure out how to stand out, right? So you have to invest the money. And plus the spaces are so valuable. They're expensive because they're, it's the place you want to be. So it cost us about $10,000 to do Magic the very first time. We built these special walls. We got there, stayed there, had some helpers, eat in Vegas, just all the expenses that go into it. And then we did our thing and got not one order. $10,000, not one single order. Yeah. So then we decided, well, go back and try to beat the pavement again. So what I would do is I would get into my car, put my rack of clothing and all my samples into my car. And at this time, I had a baby who's sitting right there, and he's now 20. So he was like 1. He would get in his car seat back there. I would take all my samples, stick them in the trunk. I would take the Thomas Guide. Does anybody know what the Thomas Guide is? Okay, so it's a book of maps that's really hard to use. This is before the internet. There's no Google Maps, right? So I'm opening up page after page of maps and trying to figure out, how do I get from this store to this store? And I would call up the stores, find out if they would even be interested in looking at my stuff and talk it up and sell it. And then they'd say yes, and I would go, okay, where do you get there? How do you get there? You know what I mean? And then I would map my route around LA with a little highlighter in my Thomas Guide. And then Sarkis and I would drive from store to store to store. I would take the rack out, set it all up. He'd be attached, hanging here in the little baby bib thing, Luckily, he was cute, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, so cute. Okay, buy stuff. It's very helpful. And it also helped because Sarkis is an Armenian name, and all my sewers were Armenian, so every time I came in, they were like, what do you need? Oh my God, Sarkis! So it was very helpful having this guy around. So basically, I ended up getting myself in stores that way, and it was the guerrilla route, but that's how I did it. It was really just me going in and saying, please, carry my stuff. This is what it looks like. We're a startup, but this is cool, and we have funding, and convincing people. Then I go do Magic the second season because, okay, we've got ourselves into some stores. I'm going to do it better this time. I already have walls that we built, so I don't need to spend that money. We're going to get smaller space. We're not going to get the huge one. So we spent about $5,000, and we set up shop, 3 days, not one sale. Again, so all that goes into it and nothing. So I decide, well, okay, go back to the drawing board, go resell to each of these stores, sell our collection again. By the way, all these collections, there's catalogs and line sheets and everything in the back afterwards if you want to take a peek at what I did, what it looked like. I mean, there's a bunch of it up there too, but very 1990s. So didn't get any sales and decided to get myself into stores that way. Then the third year, I guess we're just a glutton for punishment or something. We did it again. So we did Magic the third time. Third time is the charm because we set up shop and people were coming. They were buying, and it was from Japan and England, all over the United States, and suddenly we had sales, and we had so many sales, it was making up for the other times that we didn't have any sales. We now had money, you know what I mean? We had a profit. We were actually doing it. And so we took that, and we just grew with that, and we started selling and selling, and there was a distributor in Japan that bought a bunch of it for stores, and then for Soul Train, they brought back in Japan, and apparently was on the show there. And then we started to get celebrities wearing our our stuff. In fact, at Magic one time, we saw Quentin Tarantino walking, and we ran up to him and we just forced our pieces upon him. We were like, you need some stuff, and we just gave him some stuff, and he was all sweet and thankful, and and then we actually had connections because my business partner was an actress. So we had our stuff actually on 90210. Tori Spelling was wearing it on one of the episodes. I've been trying to figure out which episode it is. I'm gonna have to watch all the seasons again and then somehow freeze frame. I'll take a photo with my phone. I'm not sure, but I need to find it because I don't even have a picture of it. Nobody took pictures of everything back then. So I have few pictures. I have one of Christina Applegate wearing my stuff on Jessie. I have in the portfolio, I have a bunch of soap opera people, and things like that. But we even had Leonardo DiCaprio wearing our stuff. We had Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee wearing our stuff. We had Kevin Conley wearing our stuff. There was Leanne Rimes wore our stuff. It was pretty good. Do you have a question?
Yeah, just what do you think the major difference was that they're doing for you?
Good question. So I asked each one of the people that bought our stuff, and I had actually seen them last time. They had shown interest before. So I was like, why didn't you buy from me before? And they said, we don't take a chance on new people. We don't know if you're going to be able to deliver the product. If we place an order and you can't deliver it, now we have empty spaces in our store we have to scramble to fill. So we were going to wait and see if you're still here year after year, you must be doing something right, or you must have an investor or something. So they wait. And so that's literally the same answer I got from everybody. And that's really what it takes. So it takes some guerrilla tactics to get yourself in the stores before. That's the thing. The sales reps and the trade shows are really how you're going to get into the stores, but it's this catch-22 because you need to be in the stores first. It's just like when you graduate from college and they won't hire you because you don't have any experience. It's the same kind of thing. Now we have the internet. We can sell direct to consumer, but imagine if you're a designer starting and you want to sell direct to consumer, your consumer wants you to ship that product tomorrow. They want to get it, maybe even today because of Amazon. Look what, So these designers now have this obstacle, like, how am I going to make the one that you want and ship it to you tomorrow? I have to already have made 100 of them or 5,000 of them or whatever your number is so that I can ship them on demand. So they have to fund their production up front without pre-orders to be able to do that. So that's the obstacle. So there's a benefit to having direct to consumer. You can get sales because you can get good SEO, search engine optimization, have people find your website and sell a product that's a niche and everything. But, there's just a lot of negatives to it too. That's the big negative. That's a great question. So eventually we got our stuff worn by celebrities, sold in stores. We were doing our thing and it was awesome. And then, sadly, my grandmother passed away. And she and my grandfather were the reason that I was able to go to college. They were there for every single thing we did. My grandpa would go to the trade shows and wear my caps and my t-shirts. And it was so amazing how supportive they were. And they were like, parents to me too. So when my grandmother passed away, I just felt like my world, I feel like I have post-traumatic stress syndrome when my grandmother passed away. It was the most heartbreaking thing that's ever happened to me. So I basically thought, well, I got to come back because my grandfather's going to be by himself and he needs somebody to take care of him. He was getting really old at this time and he needed that. So I came back to Arizona, brought my husband and my son, and we moved in with my grandfather and took care of him for a while. And he's passed away at this point now. But I think that's a really important part of the story because I had to leave Los Angeles where my clothing is being made. Now, even though we're selling and we're profitable, I'm literally still going from pattern maker to grader, to marker maker, to cutting service, to sewing contractor, to all kinds of places. And let me tell you a couple things that can happen in that journey. So here's one example of here's two. I have two good ones. Okay, here's two good ones. So at one point, the cutters, okay, let me explain this. When you cut, I told you about the marker, right? The big piece of paper with all the patterns on it and stuff like that. If you want to squeeze those in very strategically and save money, the pattern grader is going to flip pieces upside down for you and get them in there best. If they don't know what your fabric is, they're going to do that. if your fabric has a print on it, you don't want pieces that are upside down, right? So you have to tell them those things. That's part of the tech pack. That's part of the filling out the right information on a grading and marking form that you don't learn in design school, that we teach you how to do here, right? That's the reality of what it takes. It's not me drawing a pretty picture and say, make this. It's being involved in stuff like that, right? So I wrote out my grading and marking ticket with the instructions that said, these pattern pieces are one way only. And they were written in red, and they were highlighted in yellow, because I knew how important this was. And then I delivered them, and on the patterns, when you want a piece to be right side up, there's a big red RSU that goes on the pattern, right side up. So that was on there. And then I delivered it to the guy, and I said, these are right side up because our fabric is corduroy, and corduroy has a direction. It has a nap. It looks dark in one direction and light in another direction because of the furs. And so I said, you can't flip pieces upside down. You're going to get dark and light pieces next to each other. So notice this is in red and it's highlighted in yellow. Here it is on the pattern, and here's me verbally telling you all of this, right? So bases are covered. I'm going home, and I'm going to go continue to sell and run the business and design the clothes and everything. So I'm doing all my stuff, and then I get a phone call, and the the grader is done, and he says, we're ready for you to pick up the marker. So I go to pick it up, but I realize I'm too busy, and I send, who is my assistant now, send her to pick up the marker. She picks up the marker, and she delivers it to the cutter, and she has all of our fabrics, and she delivers them to the cutters. They cut everything, and a couple weeks later, I get a phone call. The cuts are ready for you. Please come down and pick them up. So I come down. I don't come down. I keep saying I come down. I don't come down. She comes down to pick them up. She picks them all up and delivers them to the sewing contractor, and they start sewing, and she comes back, and we're doing our thing. And a couple days later, I get a phone call from the sewing contractor, and they say, you need to come down here. There's something wrong, and we're going to take all of the stuff off the sewing machines because the sewing machines have to keep going. That's how we barely make payroll as it is. So we're going to take your stuff off the sewing machine. We're going to replace it with other people's stuff, and your stuff's going in the corner until we can see you, and you can come down here and figure this out. So I go down, and this is LA. These are warehouses that are really big with lots of sewing machines, I open the doors to the warehouse. From across the room, I can see the difference in color on our shorts. So they were kind of like those OP shorts from the 70s that have the little patch pockets on them. They're back in style. I've seen them like at Tilly's and stuff now, but we brought them back in the 90s. So they were corduroy with little patch pockets, and the pockets and stuff were dark, and the body was light, and it was wrong. I knew from across the room. So I go back to the grader, and I say, apparently this yellow highlighted red thing here got missed, and some of the pieces were upside down on the marker, and, can you help me out here? And he's like, actually, I would love to. I'm glad to. I will fix that, and I will print you out a new marker. No problem. I'm like, but I've already cut it, and I've already sewn it. And he's like, what? Why? I'm like, well, because you gave it to me. He's like, well, why wouldn't you check it first? Where's your quality control person? I'm like, I don't have one. I can't afford one. He's like, you're the only person in here that doesn't have a quality control manager, and you can't afford to not have one. And I was like, oh my God, that's so true. I was a production manager for another company. Part of that is quality control, checking each step along the way. You don't pay somebody to do a job before you go do another job, I have to pay the cutters that cut everything. I have to pay the sewers that sewed everything. It's not their fault, and somebody like me should have checked the marker to make sure it was right before I hired it, took my finished product from this company and sent it to this company to be used. So he was totally right, and I learned my lesson that day. But good news, all the pieces that were the upside down were pocket pieces, and it was consistent through the whole thing. So it looked like it was on purpose, and we acted like it was on purpose, and nobody was the wiser. So it worked out in our favor. But that was one very scary lesson to learn. There were so many lessons like that. I can't tell you how many times my stuff was put in the corner at the sewing contractor and left there because a bigger order came from Guess or some other big company, and they needed the money, and they keep their machines going, and if they don't have a big order, they'll take my small order to fill time, but if a big order comes in, you're just getting pushed to the corner again. So I would be waiting and miss my deadlines because my stuff wasn't a priority. In fact, one time, I snuck in to the company who did that to me, and my stuff was in the corner, half sewn, and like every other day, he kept saying, oh, it'll be another day, it'll be another day, it'll be another day for weeks. So I just broke in and like stole my stuff. I basically didn't break in. They were doing business and I just walked in without anybody seeing me and I gathered all my stuff and I just walked out. And then I took it to another sewing contractor and they finished it for me. But those are the kind of things that I had to do to be able to get this stuff made. You have to be a part of the process. That's production management. That's why companies need million-dollar investments, because they need somebody to manage that and to quality control that and to be the technical designer to create the tech packs. Those are each six-figure salaries. So without the knowledge to do that yourself, it's almost impossible to be able to start a clothing brand. And so that's why this place exists, because we provide all of that right here with people like me who are willing to help explain this to you. And then people who care, like Sherry, who's my co-founder, who actually runs the manufacturing, and she wants to make sure you're happy and make sure that you come in here. So you come in here and you get to check things before it goes to the next thing. In fact, we want you to come here. Not enough people take advantage of that fact, and they really should, because if something gets done wrong, it's on you for not checking it. It's on you for not filling out your tech pack information. The sewers need to actually follow some instructions. They need to know what's in your head. And if you don't have what's in your head on paper, they're gonna guess. And if they guess, it's not gonna be what's in your head. That's what a tech pack is. So then we're forced to pay sewers and you haven't paid us, that's a terrible thing. So we do this so that you can learn the process, be a part of it, and get what you want, and you can be in that role without having to go to LA. I watch so many people have to go, oops, I'm going through things without knowing. I watch so many people go through this process. Try to go through this process and fail. Because when I moved back here, I decided, you know what, this process is too hard. I'd like to try to help other people go through it. First thing when I moved back here, I read an article in the newspaper, and there was an article that mentioned a brand called Forma. And it was a clothing brand in Arizona. My grandfather actually had found the article for me, and he had sent it to me in LA when he knew I was moving here. I love that guy. So I read this article, I'm like, oh my God, there's a clothing brand, maybe I have a job, And I called them up and I said, can I come in and interview or, at least pick your brain? And so they said, yes, please come on in. And I came in, it was a couple of guys, and they were, just like all the brands and emerging designers here in Arizona, they were just trying to start their clothing lines. They really couldn't hire me or anything, but they shared a lot of resources and stories and things like that helped me. But I knew, if somebody was doing it here, maybe other people could be doing it here. Then I found out about the Phoenix Art Museum. Have you guys been to the Phoenix Art Museum's fashion collections ever? Okay, you know how amazing they are? So this is now 2001 when I moved here. Danita Sewell is the curator of the Phoenix Art Museum's fashion collection. She had just started pulling together that, those things. And one of the things that she did was called Salon Saturdays. And she would invite the community to come in and look at some of this vintage stuff. And she'd have her gloves on and she'd pull out corsets from the 1800s and point things out. And it was amazing. And I started to meet other people who liked fashion, and a lot of them were designers. I met other fashion designers who were standing there with me, and they were people who had the same problem I had. Like, we can't find jobs in Arizona, but we like fashion. So we were all really interested in these collections and things. And then Danita said, I'm going to put together a local fashion show here at Monarchid. Anybody ever been to Monarchid in downtown? Okay. So we all got together and we put together a fashion show that was a trompe-l'oeil fashion show. Does anybody know what trompe-l'oeil is? Couple heads nodding. Trompe-l'oeil is kind of like the mirage of reality, which means like the tuxedo t-shirt. So it's a painting of a t-shirt, but it's not really there, things like that are what trompe-l'oeil is. So everybody designed things that were trompe-l'oeil inspired, and we all put on this, local designer fashion show. Just art stuff. It wasn't really meant to be manufactured and sold. It was just really fun. So I met all these designers that way. Then I met Leslie Oliver, who was the curator at the Scottsdale Museum of Contemporary Arts, SMOCA. And SMOCA had an event called SMOCA Nights, and they would have the whole entire community come in and collaborate on things. And Leslie said, I would love for you to show a collection at SMOCA Nights. We've never done a fashion show. Would you do that? And I was like, sure. And she's like, it's next month. And I'm like, okay, so let's gather everything I've ever made in my life, like from Monkey Wench and all kinds of stuff. And then at the same time, The job I did get in the industry was teaching because I couldn't find any other factory or design jobs or anything like that. So I started teaching at New School for the Arts, which is here in Tempe. It's a high school for art students. And I ran the fashion program there. And one of the projects I give the students is make a wearable art piece. So go out and find something that isn't fabric, isn't regular, fabric, and turn it into something. So I did an example piece, and one of the pieces I did was a ball gown, and I made it out of recycled t-shirts. I went to Goodwill and I got 25 t-shirts and I patchworked them together and I created this big white giant ball gown. And we had a little fashion show and all the students liked it and they wanted to order it for prom and things like that. And so I was like, hey, maybe I'm onto something. So I started to make a few of those. So between those pieces, my old monkey wench pieces, I had a fashion show at Smoka, just my stuff. It was so exciting. I'm like, I've made it, I'm like a designer in Arizona. But each one was a one of a kind. I had no way to actually manufacture it. And it took me forever to make each piece. So like I had to sell them for like $1,000 each or it wasn't gonna be worth it, So it was like this happy but terrifying thing at the same time, like how am I going to continue to do this? What am I going to do? And all these other designers came out of the woodwork that I had met and said, I want to have a show at Smoka. Can you hook me up? I'm like, yeah, let's do this. And so Smoka let me put together quarterly events called Smoka Nights. And we would put 10 different designers together on the runway. Each designer would put 10 pieces onto the runway. By the way, I keep forgetting to show you pictures. There's my t-shirt ball gowns I was talking about. So these are the thing that I was making at that time at New School for the Arts. And then we started putting together these fashion shows. So here's a couple of pictures from Smoka Nights. And those are pieces that I collaborated on with a woman named Rhonda Zayas. She was the graphic artist, so she created all the circus-themed logos, and then we heat transferred them on, and I sewed all the clothes, and these were a couple of our finale pieces. But they were sold-out shows. You couldn't get a ticket. I mean, it was awesome. You were packed in there, and designers, all these cool designers were doing these really neat things, and we were all showing them on the runway, and then people were like, oh my God, somebody asked me to make another one in their size. I don't know how. And a store asked somebody else to make 10, and they were like, I don't know how. And so I started to realize, oh my God, all these people have the same problem I have. This is like really bad. What are we gonna do, And I didn't know how to solve it, but I thought, well, maybe there's something I could do about it. These are a few other pieces that I had made. I started making all kinds of different things because I really didn't have a direction, and I was just having fun sewing and designing clothes. And I decided that I would do something about it. So I pulled together the community by providing a resource that was a directory, like a yellow pages of fashion. And I thought if everybody could find each other, we could all network, we could all hire each other, we could all pay the same pattern maker, pay the same sewers, keep them in business, and we'd start an industry. This is gonna be awesome. So I pulled together this magazine. Here they are right here, so I'm gonna pass them around. You can look through them. And what was that?
Did you use Jeff Newton photography?
Yes, you do? Oh my God, so a lot of these people are still around. This is 18 years ago, but I know, yeah. So this is about 18 years ago, or 15 years ago. That is such a small world, that's crazy. But there are people that are still in here, and then there are people who are no longer in business because the resources just weren't there for them. But the directory, if you turn to these pages, you'll see I listed every designer in town, every hair person I could find, every makeup person I could find, every boutique, every model. They all got a free space in this directory, and this magazine was free. How did I do that? Advertising. So I sold advertising to pay for the printing of the magazine, which took all of my time. So it is not fun selling advertising. Apparently I'm good at sales because I sold my clothing line and then I sold ad space. I can do it, I just hate it. So I spent most of my time trying to pay for this magazine. It was ridiculous and it was hard and it was competitive because everybody else was competing for the same ad revenue. All the other magazines, there were a lot of magazines in town and we were all competing for the same ad revenue. It was really hard to do. And so we only made a few copies of it and then we couldn't afford it. It was $7,000 to print it every single time. And so it was a really hard thing to provide. So we stopped printing those directories, but we went online. Now the internet is a thing. Okay, so now the internet's happened, and we can actually do some stuff. We can make websites, and we could sell direct to consumer. And all these designers are starting to think more and more about the resources because now they can get more orders selling anywhere. And so things were changing a little bit. Now, at the same time, we would take each of these magazines, we would take one designer from the directory, one hairstylist, one makeup artist, one photographer, and one model. And they would all get together to do the cover, and then we would give them, the designer, their own fashion show. And so everybody would come. It was so incredibly cool. We would every month have a different fashion show featuring, and the whole community would come out. We had thousands of people constantly. And every year we would do a show that was called the Label Horde Fashion Ball. And 60 designers would be involved. Each designer would put in one piece that showed what they did, that was sort of like the culmination of this is my collection, you know? And then they would all each walk the runway, and it would be a big networking thing, and everybody would be able to share resources, and it was a way to show the world that a community exists here. All the models would volunteer, all the hair and makeup people would volunteer, all the designers would do this, and it was because it was a marketing tool for all of us. Like, here we are, you know, here Arizona, this is your resources. And so this was an annual event for us. And between all those monthly shows, all the smoke shows, all the Label Horde fashion shows, I have literally coordinated multi-designer fashion shows probably 60 times in this time. So I have a lot of experience coordinating multi-designer fashion shows. If you had me coordinate like a fancy fashion show for like a mall, I probably wouldn't do a very good job. But I can bring together a community like no one's business. I'm good at that. So I've got a formula down for it. And that's one of our flyers for one of our monthly events called Pret-a-Porter, and we would have it at the Ice House and Mickey's Hangover and lots of different places around town, Legend City and Monarch and, you know, all kinds of places. And then Fashion Ball would be all kinds of places, like that one was at Bentley Projects and El Pedregal and Ice House and different stuff. So it was the beginning of the fashion community. We were really doing stuff, but we really weren't manufacturing anything. It was a bunch of artists putting their stuff on a runway. That's really all it was. What is that? That's really not making anybody money, you know? So I started to feel a little weird about it. It wasn't, you know, really like accomplishing what I wanted to accomplish, but it was helping to get a lot of recognition for what I was doing and spreading the word and stuff. And I ended up earning a few great accolades that I'm super proud of. The Fashion Group International is a 5,000 person organization based out of New York, and I won their Rising Star for Arizona, which was pretty awesome. I won Visual Artist of the Year from the Scottsdale Cultural Council, Chicest Local Designer by 944, Best Local Designer in Arizona Foothills every year for like 12 years, and then Arizona Foothills said I was one of 20 influential women. So I was really like excited and doing things that were paying off emotionally, I guess, but not making any money. So I don't know, like, if that's the best thing in the world. I was like excited, but then I'm like, really, I mean, I can't pay my bills, you know? And I started teaching at every school you can imagine. And let's get to that. I was teaching at Collins College. I was teaching at Art Institute of Phoenix. I was teaching at Mesa Community College. I've taught at ASU. I mean, I've literally taught at every school there is. And I was watching hundreds of designers, students, graduate from these programs and move because there were no jobs here. Or just change careers, get different jobs altogether because there were no jobs here. So between all of that and all these designers, I was getting more and more frustrated and feeling guilty because now we had this excitement about a community. Then we had Phoenix Fashion Week start, Scottsdale Fashion Week start, Tucson Fashion Week start, Fashion Week for Kids start, Arizona Fashion Week. I mean, fashion weeks are popping up all over. Groups are starting. Schools are offering fashion programs. Every school is offering a fashion program. But there's no manufacturing, so nobody can make any clothes. If you show your stuff on a runway, now what? You know? So I just felt really weird about the whole thing, and I didn't know what to do next. I knew we needed a space here that could support all of that. This was a vision back then, but I didn't know how I was going to do it. So I'm volunteering my time to pull together these shows, to pull together this beautiful directory, to work my butt off and not get paid for it, because I didn't want to charge anybody to be in the directory. I didn't want to charge anybody to pick up the directory, because I wanted to be a real representation of what was in Arizona. Not people that could afford to pay for it, literally everybody. People who couldn't afford to pay for it, people that were awesome artists that just didn't have the money, right? And New Times said they wanted to write an article about me. Now, I had some articles already written about me, so I was like, okay, that sounds awesome, let's spread the word. And I had the writer of the New Times follow me around for about a month. And he went to all of our shows, and he did all these interviews, and I was really excited about it. And he's about to send it to the editor, and he sends me an email, and he's about to go to print the next day, and he sends me, he phone calls me, sorry, and he says, hey, I have some bad news. I'm like, yeah? And he said, I love what you're doing, and I think it's absolutely incredible, and I kudos to all the work that you've put in there. And it's really exciting, and I see what you're doing. But my editor won't make it a cover story because it's just not controversial. It's too happy. It's too positive. Like, what do you do? Like, it's too positive. Like, you're just giving this all away. There's got to be another story there. So he's like, I had to kind of change it a little bit. And that's the only way they're going to print it. And he read it to me over the phone. And I cried. It's called Angela's Ashes. Yeah. And it was, the party's hot, but the Valley's fashion scene, not so much. And the spin he took was that these designers didn't really know what they were doing. All the stuff looked too artsy and like nobody would ever really wear it. And I'm the mother of all of that. That was the story. Yes. Yeah. So I'm crying my eyes out. This is like the worst thing that's ever happened, right? I'm like, oh my God, everything I've done for free for everybody, and this is the things I get, you know? I was heartbroken. And then the next day, the thing comes out, right? And I start getting calls from people about how amazing this article is, that I'm on the cover of the New Times, and congratulating me. And I'm like, did you read the article? I really don't think anybody reads the articles in the New Times because nobody really read it. They just thought it was really cool that I was on the cover. And the pictures are all pretty and it looks all cool, you know? And so I really don't think anybody was reading it. And I felt like, okay, that moment when you hear like, any publicity is good publicity, and you're like, okay, whatever that means, I know what that means. I get it, you know? It spread the word like wildfire. Like, all of a sudden, a lot of people knew what we were doing, and everybody was like supporting it, and all these people were like, you know, finally like realizing what we were doing. And then people who read it were behind me, and they were, you know, a couple people said to the New Times, take your magazine out from in front of my business, you know, and things like that. And then I got to write a letter to the editor, and they printed it. And the editor told me that it was the longest letter to the editor they had ever allowed to be printed, because I went on a rampage and I like said, you know, my piece. I was like, for the next issue, you know, so I was like, it's not fair. These are all artists. They're struggling because there's no resources. They're doing the best that they can. And, you know, it's not fair to like say that about them and me and, you know, all that stuff. So it turned out it was okay. I mean, at the time it felt like the end of the world, but it really wasn't. And those are kind of the things I want to share. Like, stuff that could feel like the end of the world could be a turning point in your life. They could be anything. They could open up other doors, you know. Those are things that have happened. There's a lot of things like that happen. It just led to something else. It eventually all leads to wherever you're supposed to be. So, you know, that is not a big deal. It turns out the writer was a criminal and went to jail anyways, and called me from jail and apologized for the article. I don't know how you call from jail, but I got a phone call from jail, and he was like, it's killing me and I feel so bad, you know. So, yeah, but anyways, so then I was like, you know what? That was a bit of an emotional thing for me, and I wasn't making any money, and I decided, and a lot of people were, and I was getting frustrated, and a lot of people were like, you know what? Why don't you just focus on your own line? Why do you keep trying to help everybody else, you know? Why don't you do something for yourself? And I'm like, yeah, okay, that sounds like a good idea. So I'm like, what's the one thing that, you know, I'm doing in my collection that I really, you know, like to do? And it was these ball gowns, and I started to make more of them, and I started to make other things too. I would take sweaters, and I would take other things like ties and stuff from Goodwill, and I would make all kinds of recycled things, really into sustainability. So I wanted to be sustainable and do it that way. And then I met with a woman who wrote this book that is really well known, and we had a lunch together, and I asked her some advice. I said, you know, this is my collection. What do you think? What should I do? And she said, this is good advice, designers, okay? She said, don't try to do all kinds of things what you like and blah, 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 blah. Pick the one thing that you do best and just do that. Focus on this niche and be known for that thing and do that really, really well. So I said, well, the one thing I do best, the one thing I like the most, that seems to sell the most, are the t-shirt ball gowns. So I'm just gonna do that. I'm gonna start getting rid of all the other stuff I was making and, you know, just focus on t-shirt ball gowns. The minute I started doing that is the minute my design collection changed and I started making tons of sales, and I couldn't even keep up with the orders. So I'm sewing constantly. They're one of a kind because I literally have to take 25 shirts and cut them apart and sew them them together. So it's not manufacturing, but I can charge enough for each one because it's a one of a kind. You're not going to find another one because they're all made out of different logo t-shirts, and so they're all unique, and so I can justify the price. Now, for a designer who's making small quantities, how do you justify the price of something unless something's really unique about it? You're not competing with Forever 21 and H&M. They're going to make the same dress you are for $5, you know, overseas because they're making 100,000 of them and not paying people fairly, you know? And so you as a designer have to figure out what it is that's going to make people spend more money on your one-of-a-kinds in order to justify that, and it's got to be something that nobody else can find someplace else for whatever reason. So that was the formula. Figured it out, and I did it, and it started to pay my bills, and I closed Label Horde. I was like, screw you guys, I'm out of here. Not really. I decided I would close it because it was an expense that I couldn't handle, and for, you know, having so much drama, I was like over it. So I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to focus on my own thing. But this little inkling in my head that's always there, I want to help everybody else. So every single month, I sent out a newsletter, and all the people that were already in the magazine and, you know, in the community, I just kept them updated about everything I knew about. So there was no such thing as MailChimp and all those newsletter things. I would just send an email. It would have a list of, like, these are all the events I know about, these are job opportunities, these are places that will buy your clothes. I was just trying to help everybody and kept this newsletter going. Eventually, I got so many people in my database that Cox flagged me as a spammer. They thought that I was spamming people, and they wouldn't let me send any more emails out. So then I was stuck. I'm like, how do I tell everybody about it? I swear to God, this is not a bot list or something. Like, I'm literally trying to help people, and I can't figure out how to email them all. And then luckily at that point is when MailChimp and, you know, Constant Contact and all those places started. So I created a newsletter to be able to send people that information. That newsletter is still in existence today. It's called Hot Off the Press. I love puns, so it's H-A-U-T-E, Hot Off the Press, get it? So you should subscribe to it because every month I tell you every single job I know about, every single event I know about, every single opportunity I know about. I just want to help. I spend 12 hours doing it, at least 12 hours every single month, and I don't make any money off of that. I just want to make sure y'all know what's going on. All you have to do is hit subscribe on any of our websites and you're in, okay? So read it. That's the only thing. You have to read it, you know? So make sure you open it and look at it because there's a ton of stuff that you could be doing here. There's free things all the time and lots of events you can be a part of and lots of opportunities and stuff. So anyways, I decided to keep that going, but to focus on myself, I started teaching more. I started consulting. I started teaching the designers what do they have to do to manage production, to go from pattern maker, grader, marker, cutter, sewer, and then teach them tech packs. And then I would send them to Los Angeles because none of those things existed here. So I'd be like, here's how you do it. Good luck, have fun. It was kind of frustrating, but I didn't know what else to do. And I was watching them all fail because you have to be there. You have to go from place to place. How do you drive this to there, to this to there, to meet low minimums if you're not living there? It's not worth flying back and forth, and if you're not there, things are gonna go terribly wrong. And they did for so many different people. One of those people is sitting in our audience, and she's my co-founder. Her name is Sherry Berry. And she started a collection here in Arizona, and we met when I was doing my consulting. And she is one of the designers that had to go over to Los Angeles. And because it's in Los Angeles, since she's here, she encountered those same problems. You can't be there, things are gonna go wrong, you have to pay for it anyways because it's your fault for not watching it in the factory and staring at it, you know what I mean? So there's no winning. So basically she had to close a collection because of the same reason everybody else does. You're gonna hear her story next month. So she's run like 300 retail stores in her past life. She's been the marketing director for Arizona Science Center. She's the smartest woman I know. You're gonna learn so much from her next month on the last Thursday of the month, but she's even one of them. So I was consulting and helping all these brands, sending them away. And eventually, oh, here's a few more pieces. These are all from Scottsdale Fashion Week. Thank you. So I started to put together the Scottsdale Fashion Week shows too. And I brought, one year, I brought 120 designers to that runway. We did a show with 120 designers. It was pretty awesome. So, and eventually, like, I just kept, focusing on my own thing. And then I decided I would bring back the directory because all these designers still needed it. So I created Label Horde online. And it was the help from a generous web coder named Ron who said that he would come in and code this thing for me because it had to be coded from scratch, because if you're in the directory, you actually can make your own directory listing. You can create an account, you add your own business information, you manage it, you edit it, you do what you want with it, and it's free. You don't have to pay for it. So I couldn't pay for somebody to make it, and he saw my vision and he helped me do it. Isn't that amazing? He literally spent like months doing it. And half the time he was sitting at my house. He would come to my house because he knew he wouldn't get distracted if he did it, in my house instead of at home. And he would put his hood on. He would sit in the computer and you couldn't see his face. And he would just be like this for hours and hours, sometimes into the night, It's amazing. There's so many generous people in the world. It's incredible. And he made us a website that is a directory for Arizona's fashion, okay? So if you click on anything, you open it up, there's everybody in Arizona that does that thing. So you click on hairstylists, there's a bunch of hairstylists. You click on photographers, a bunch of photographers. Click on designers, designers. So if you need to find anybody, there you go. Here it is. It's all free. So don't ask me to hook you up with somebody. Just go there and find them. So that was the first thing. Once I brought that back, I thought, well, am I causing more of a problem again? Now I want to provide the resources. So I decided that I would be on a mission to create the resource, the manufacturing, the incubator, the place that would provide everything that people needed. But how was I going to do that? I'm a starving artist on a teacher's salary, and I'm literally broke, right? Like, it was bad, and we were struggling like no one's business. We couldn't even, I have been there where you have to put things back at the grocery store multiple times. I sat there and I put stuff away, yet I was working 60 hours a week to provide free things for the community because I believe in this. I think that this is a need. This is something, if somebody makes it out of Arizona, it's going to help all of us, and I want to be a part of that. I want to make sure that it happens. So eventually, the story of fabric. How did this happen? Eventually, I reconnected with Sherry. Now, before I reconnected with Sherry, I was teaching at one of the schools, and the school closed. And they knew that I wanted to do this. In fact, I was teaching a business plan class, and my business plan I created to show the students was this. And so I was showing the teachers and talking about it all the time. And when they closed, the school offered to give me their machines. So I now had sewing machines and cutting tables and dress forms. And now I had no place to put them. So I had all this stuff, but I didn't know what to do with it. And I thought, now I really need a place to put it, and now I really need to figure it out. Then the next thing, there was a garment manufacturer here in Scottsdale, and they were going out of business. They had set up a full factory, but they didn't have any sales yet, and so they ended up having to close it down. They couldn't keep it going. So the president was actually a friend. She was a designer in our community that was part of all of this, and she said, I'd sell you this equipment for like pennies on the dollar and sell it to you cheaper than anybody else if you want it for your vision. So I put together a Gofundme campaign to buy all that stuff. It started to get funded, but it wasn't nearly what I needed. And suddenly, I get a phone call from Sherry. And Sherry, we had met when, she was a designer, and we had talked about going over to LA and all that stuff. And she said, hey, a friend of mine said that you wanted to create this factory, this incubator, and this is something I want to do too, because I know why this is not here. I mean, we need it, and I failed trying to manufacture my stuff in LA just like everybody else. I want to provide this space for them, and I want to help everybody else. Can we do this together? And I was like, oh my God, this is what I'm looking for. I need a partner. All I know how to do is wrangle a community. I know about design and manufacturing, but I don't know anything about like real estate deals and, incubator spaces and working with cities and, any nonprofits, none of that stuff. I don't know any of that. That's all like adult stuff. So we got together and we started brainstorming, and it just came so naturally. This was like meant to be. I mean, the story led to what this is today. And basically, the idea was we create a space, and this space needs to be big because we're going to offer no minimum manufacturing. And when we offer no minimum manufacturing, because that's the one thing everybody needs to make small quantities, right? But nobody else is going to do that for them. They're going to require 5,000 pieces. But when you start, you want to make 20 or 50 or 200, no one's going to look at you. So we need to do that. That's the core of this whole thing. If we're going to offer no minimum manufacturing, we're going to lose money. It's going to be no way that you can profit off of that. So what else do we need? We need an event space. Because if we can rent that out, we can subsidize this loss over here, We need offices, because if we can rent those out, that can pay for the loss over here. We need photo studios, because if we can rent those out, that can pay for the loss over here. We need to rent stuff out so that we can pay for the loss and get this whole thing going. And having these spaces is providing much more, because now we got community, we got events, we got all kinds of stuff happening here. We can sell product and everything. So that was the formula. Then her business, Arizona Fashion Source, that she started, took that on. So Arizona Fashion Source was going to be the manufacturer and the event space rental. Label Horde was going to be the education, the consulting, the design development for the designer to be able to have a tech pack to approach the manufacturing. And Label Horde is going to be the directory, the job classifieds, and the calendar, and all the support services. So together, Label Horde and Arizona Fashion Source needed a space to do this. We also really wanted to help other people, so we wanted to start a nonprofit. We figured if people could go through this process cheaper, they would succeed. So the nonprofit needs to support people going through this process somehow by making it cheaper, by scholarshiping people into the program or something. So we had this vision, and we started looking for space. Sherry has a real estate license, so we were looking for commercial buildings, and we were about to sign a contract here in Tempe, and she said, hey, let's go talk to the city of Tempe. We're about to start an industry in their city. Why don't we see if they have any help for us? So we went in and we called, we made an appointment, and they were ready to see us 2 days later. So Sherry took that 2 days and she rewrote the business plan that I had written in the college I was teaching at, and she made it much more adult. It was smarter and well-written and actually comprehensible from a city's point of view and all kinds of things that I couldn't really do. So she really didn't sleep for 2 days, and she rewrote this thing. And we went into the Economic Development Director's office and we presented our plan. And they showed us this building. So this is the former Tempe Performing Arts Center. And when we presented our plan, she said, we got halfway through our business plan presentation, by the way, and she said, stop. I love this, I'm looking for this, and I have a building waiting here for something like this. And we were like, no way. She just grabs a set of keys and she walks us across the grass and opens up the doors to this place. But this is what it looked like. It was unrenovated since the 80s. So there was a lot of mauve and teal everywhere. There was a lot of really bad office carpeting everywhere. None of the exit signs worked. None of the bug eyes worked. There was tread that was falling off the stairs. There were bleachers that underneath the bleachers, there were props from the theater that was here. There was a car hood. There was a gurney. There were costumes. There was shoes. There was the weirdest things under this thing. And the whole place was painted black, and all the windows were blacked out. And then if you walk through the building, as we walked through the building, it's cut up in all kinds of weird ways, and everything is oak. There's chair rail all over the building, it's oak. And all the walls are really, really dirty, and there's cockroaches on their backs everywhere. But we opened the doors and we said, oh my God, this is amazing. And our jaws went to the floor, and we literally had to pick them up and put them back on our faces because this is what we needed. This is what the whole community needed. So how are we gonna make this work? Because to get into this building, the city is going to require something, right? And it's either pay a rent or earn your keep here. So we can't pay a rent. It would have been about $300,000 a year. So how do we earn our keep here? We take our nonprofit and we give back to the community by providing free things for the designers. It's a win-win for everybody. The designers can do things for free here or for discounted rates, well below market rates, and opportunities to learn all kinds of things. Stuff like this, events where you're learning for free right now is supported by the nonprofit. We count that as a give back to our community, and we report that to city council, and we earn our stay that way. Now, it doesn't mean it's free, because that means Sherry and I work 12 to 16 hours a day as free employees of the foundation so that we can teach free classes, sew free things, provide a free sourcing library, literally work our butts off here to make sure we deliver those programs and services. So it's all on our shoulders, but at the same time, we actually have a community behind us. And there are 570 registered volunteers in our system at this point. And there were hundreds of them when we opened the door because everybody wanted to see this happen. And so it's a community helping us contribute to the give back. But Sherry and I have to be here all day, every day, and then even into the evening because we always have events and stuff like that. So it's a lot of work to be able to pull that off. And it's also not free because we pay utilities and maintenance. And Sherry invested a ton of money into making this safe and pretty and all kinds of stuff so that we could do this here. She's the most selfless person I have ever met, and she pays her sewers. She has 17 employees now that are manufacturing for 340 brands. So in 3 years, we have manufactured for over 340 brands, and she pays them well above minimum wage. And every time the minimum wage goes up, their salaries go up. She has not taken a salary in 3 years. That woman has not taken a salary. She's put in her 401k because she believes in this place. She's here 12 hours a day at least, sometimes 16, on the weekends as well. Because we want this place to succeed. We want people to have what they need to grow a fashion industry, and that's what it takes to be able to do that. I've had people ask me, like, how did you pull this off? And can I do it too? I'm like, go ahead and try. It was a real hard formula. You have to have a city being able to see the vision and provide something like this. You have to have a nonprofit supporting that stuff. You have to have for-profits that are willing to donate their equipment, their machinery, their time, their skill, their labor to be able to do that. So everything we do here comes out of our own pockets to be able to do that. And we do it because we've been given this opportunity. We are so grateful to the city to see this vision. And we turned this place. Oh, I forgot to mention. By the way, not only all of that, Sherry and I physically moved all of the equipment in this building ourselves with the help of my husband, my son, a couple other guys here and there, but I would say a ton of it was Sherry and I literally lifting up sewing machines and putting them into U-Hauls and driving them across town and putting them here. We've moved so many things in this building, I can't even tell you. So when you get a thing in your email that says, hey, can you help us paint a wall or move a desk? Please help us. I don't think I could paint another wall. This is 26,000 square feet, and my family and I painted probably 3/4 of it ourselves. So it's a lot of time and money that goes into it. That's us driving the U-Haul, by the way. So we even drove the U-Haul. And before we got use of this building, we had all this equipment. Before City Council approved it, we had to put it somewhere. So we opened up a mini factory in Mesa, and we actually put it in there, and we started making product. In fact, our first factory looked like that. So it was pretty decent, but that's all it was. We didn't have all this other support, so it was really just a micro manufacturing, no minimum factory that was losing money because it didn't have rental for events or anything like that. But we had to put it somewhere and get started. So our first customer was a clothing brand called Pesky's, and she makes activewear with a bug repellent infused into the fabric because she had Lyme disease. And so she got it from a tick bite. And so she created a collection that would prevent you from getting tick bites. It's amazing. She is still in business today. She started with us. She knew nothing about design. She knew nothing about tech packs. She knew nothing about manufacturing, how to manage it. She went through everything that we offer and has a clothing line. Isn't that amazing? So she was our first customer. Then we got approval from the city. City Council approved the use of this building so we could move in and we could start fixing it up. That's Donna Kennedy and Jill Bushbacher. They're the economic development people in the city of Tempe. And between them, the City Council, and the mayor, we are eternally grateful. They are so supportive. They come to everything. They are like our best friends at this point. It's pretty awesome. And we had the community come in, and when we got the keys, we painted, we hauled out literally a city block dumpster, like one of those giant ones that takes up the city block. We filled it with all kinds of trash and stuff that was left in this building. Just this little group of people right here, and we went and just cleaned this building. And so actually you can see one of them, or you can see a few of them in here right now, but there's Gail. Gail's part of this, she's part of the story. She's been here from the very beginning helping us clean all of this. And there's the rest of us. So we took the stuff that you see on the left and turned it to the stuff that you see on the right with the help of the community. Look at the before and the after of that space. I mean, that's what we were working with. There's the lobby, and now there's the lobby. My husband took the grinder to the cement floor in that lobby for about 18 hours one day. It was like wrestling an alligator, he told me. It was a lot of hard work. And there's before, in progress, and after of this space right here. And then we got a sign. We were so excited. It's official. There's a sign. But the hoops you have to jump through to get a sign is kind of like unbelievable. There's a lot of things that we have to follow here. It's a city building, so a lot of responsibility on that end of being safe and all of that. And the amount of money that had to be put into this to get it up there is just remarkable. But we ended up pulling it off. And it's not free because we pay all the utilities. This is 26,000 square feet. let that sink in. We also fix things when they break and, that kind of stuff. So we're a nonprofit. We need donations. Please donate. Okay. Then this is the day that we had our grand opening. So the mayor did a ribbon cutting and hundreds of people came. We did a tour of the entire building. Everybody went on a scavenger hunt and they found different rooms and they basically saw the whole entire building, and we had a big fashion show, and it was one of the happiest, after I had my children, and I got married, it was one of the happiest days of my life. So, present day, we have given back over $1 million in programs and services. That's what we documented last year. We haven't reported this year because we haven't gotten there yet. So, in 2 years, we gave $1 million in programs and services. There are $1 million worth of free things and discounted things that we've provided here to help businesses. And we've helped 340 brands, and we have actually 570 volunteers. That's even under. So I don't even know what the new numbers are. These are last year's calculations. And we do everything here. So we sew for people. We make their patterns. We grade and mark and cut so you don't have to run around. We have events here. We have a photography studio. We have classes. We have School of Frock Fashion Camp where little tweens can come and learn everything in 2 weeks that the entire industry learns. We have a free sourcing library. We have a fabric store. We have a go-to-market center with marketing, with everything you could ever ask for to get your company to market. We have a screen printer. We have a maker space where you can actually sew things yourself, or you can hire the experts over here to do it for you. We have offices where people can rent and they can actually be here while their product is being made, and they can oversee it and they can quality control and check us and all of that stuff, and they can have a building and and we discount everything. We're in downtown Tempe, and our rates are so affordable. It's month to month because we never want to stick somebody with something they can't afford. So you're literally, if you need to leave, you can. We don't stick you with that lease that you have to be here forever. We just want to help people, and that's what this place is doing. We have hair and makeup rooms. We have exciting fashion shows. We have so much amazing stuff that happens here. There's just a few pictures. One of the coolest things that we do here is we scholarship some designers into a program that we hear. That's Fashion Camp, by the way. That's my daughter. And so the fashion campers get to make an entire collection, brand it, put it on a runway. They actually sew on industrial machines, make patterns and everything. It's pretty intense, and they're little kids. But one of the coolest things that we do here, there's a couple cool things. One of them is a program that we have a partnership with ASU School of Sustainability. They bring us their old banners. We take those banners, we give them to the Centers for Habilitation. We give them a space here. We showed them how to sew. We trained all their workers, and they sew those banners into tote bags. And they sell those tote bags in the ASU bookstore, and that's how they make a living. Is that amazing? We've won the ASU President's Sustainability Award, and we've won the Tempe Mayor's Disability Award for that. We're super proud of that, and it's so rewarding and so amazing, and they are our family. They've been here since we opened the doors. And people come and network here. This is how everybody meets each other. This is like how you guys should be meeting each other right now. People come on tours. We give tours to schools and individuals 3 days a week who can come here and take a tour. We do public tours at certain times every day, and then every other day, and then we have big schools come in here and take educational tours and learn about everything. We partner with everybody, Phoenix Fashion Week, with all the organizations, all the schools in town. This is an agnostic building that is here for everyone to take advantage of the resources and to use as their own. We don't favor somebody or leave anybody out. We want you to come and use it, no matter who you are. This is your building. Help us make it what you want it. Contribute to us to be able to pull that off. And like I said, we offer the no minimum manufacturing. We have a fabric store. We have the free sourcing library. That's 25 years of manufacturing sources of mine that I put into the sourcing library, and I label them denim and lycra and corduroy and everything, and you can come use that for free. You now don't have to figure out how do I find wholesale fabrics. You can use my sources. And we have amazing fashion shows that happen here all the time. We have another one coming up on Saturday. You guys better come back. Saturday is our Cultivate show that I'll tell you about in a minute. And we have not only all this, but we're a zero waste factory. We are a no minimum factory, but we also take the scraps after we've manufactured for somebody, and we give them to a group of local designers. Astrid is one of them, sitting right here. And they partner together to create this little group, and they sew these scraps into sustainable outfits. There's dresses and shirts and all kinds of things. And we sell it, and then they get half the money, and the nonprofit gets half the money. It's called Refabricate. I love puns. It's really bad, I know. So it's good. So we launched Arizona Eco Fashion Week in order to showcase this and to showcase other designers that are using sustainable fabrics and things like that. So we have the community come together and volunteer. In fact, we have a group of models back here that have volunteered their time at so many of our shows, we can't even tell you. It's incredible, the community coming together to be able to do this. And we still do the Label Horde Fashion Ball. It's just called the Label Horde Fashion Show. So there are 60 designers that get together, and each one shows one piece, and we put it on the runway. We now do it in the Tempe Festival of the Arts, and so we have the people that are responsible for that right here, and they let us be a part of their festival, and we actually can now show to the hundreds of thousands of people that go to the festival, and it's too big to fit in this building anyway, so that helps us over there. So we're going to do it again, December 7th, I think it is, and all these designers are going to be a part of it. We have 2 people right here that have done an amazing job helping me with that event, and I couldn't have done last year's without them, and so, oh my God, thank you. Trying to pull that event off, it takes a village, and these guys are most of the village. And then the show that is happening Saturday that you guys have to come to is the culmination of everything we do here. So what we do is we pick 3 designers every year, and we give them free office space here in the building. Then they get to go through all of the consultations, all of the tech pack lessons. They get free patterns. Sherry literally pays for their patterns out of her own pocket. She sews their garments for them, and then we put it on a runway called Cultivate, so you can actually see what it looks like. They get a $5,000 marketing package from our go-to-market center, who some of our marketing people are here right now actually filming this. So it's like I said, it's a big community. And so these designers are going to be on our runway on Saturday, and you're going to see what they did when they were here, and it is freaking amazing. I'm telling you, this is like the greatest group ever. They are doing some really cool things. One of them used to be the wardrobe stylist or costume designer for House of Cards, that show. She has her own tuxedo line with her husband, and now she is reinventing undergarments because as a stylist, she could not find like nude to match every skin color, and she was told to go do that, and she would get in trouble when she couldn't find it. It doesn't exist. So she's starting her own brand of nude undergarments that comes in, I think, 12 shades of nude, matching every skin tone, every real nude, you know what I mean? And so she's making that right here. We've helped her from the beginning. She knows now how to do her own tech packs. She's taking it through production. It's going to be on this runway. And she's got more obstacles. Meeting minimums on fabric when you're making bras and underwear, you only do this much. So she's got to meet minimums, and then she's got to meet minimums on the matching hooks and the elastic to go with all those shades of nude. So she's reinvented the bra, and she got the hooks and the elastic, and it's a comfortable bra. It's an amazing story. Please come and watch it, and the money from that goes to our foundation. So you're going to see what happens in this building when you come here on Saturday. Come here. And then our gala. Every year we have an anniversary party, and we try to do some sort of fundraising. This year is going to be our first attempt at a real gala. It's actually a plated dinner. And so this is called Fashioning Arizona's Future. Everybody's going to dress like futuristas. And everything is going to be about what our vision is of the future. Our vision of the future is actually to reinvent manufacturing. You know the whole, like, either go to McDonald's or go to that expensive, restaurant that has an $18 hamburger, like, which kind of customer are you? More people are starting to appreciate that $18 hamburger, the farm-to-table kind of method, right? Same thing's happening in fashion. Like, the McDonald's is like the H&M's and Forever 21's of the world, and what we cater to here are the farm-to-table kind of companies in fashion. And so there's a new method that needs to be reinvented because manufacturing's been the same since the 1800s. It's done exactly, it's archaic. It's done the same way, and it takes a lot of human interaction, and humans have to get paid. So if you want cheap clothes, that means humans aren't slave laboring overseas somewhere and they're not getting paid correctly. So there's no way you can buy a $20 t-shirt without something terribly going wrong, and it's usually slavery, or it's usually dumping dyes in the water, or it's very unsustainable and horrible. So we actually have a vision of the future to create a factory that's going to use technology like artificial intelligence and sobots and things like that to take a lot of the human work out, free up the humans that are sewing, give them things to design, have them use their brains instead of their hands, And that factory will be more efficient and clothes can be made cheaper in smaller quantities. And we can set the model for the rest of the country on how apparel manufacturing should happen in the 21st century right here in Arizona. Why can't we do that? We already did this. This is the only one like it in the country. We're doing that, I'm telling you. So this gala is about that. And if you want to come to that gala, you're supporting that mission right there. So the tickets are up there. And then since we've opened this place, again, more accolades, wish there was more money. But these are some of the great things that at least it makes me keep wanting to go on and keep doing what I'm doing. So I like really appreciate it when things like that happen. It makes me feel like, okay, I'll keep doing it. I'll keep doing it. One day this is gonna pay off. But it pays off every day when I get to see a designer succeed. And we have so many designers that are succeeding now. Designers are growing out of this factory and we can't handle their stuff anymore because we wanna offer small batch manufacturing. So if we were to just keep making thousands for one brand, we couldn't help everybody else. And we could be making money doing that, but we really want to help everybody else. So now those brands that have been nurtured in Arizona, we have to send them to LA or overseas, to China or something like that. That's disappointing. So this vision of the future is a really important one. It's an economic development story. It's something that the city should support, the big, corporate sponsors. This is something that we need help doing. We also need your help too. So if you appreciate this story today and you want to help, you can donate $5. If everybody in this room donated $5, that would keep us going for another day. I mean, there's a lot of utilities here. That's the easy way to donate. All you have to do is text GROW AZ Fashion to 44-321. I'll leave it up there for just a second. And then you can also become a sponsor of any room in this building. If you want your name on the sewing studio, you can do that. If you want your name on the hair and makeup room, you can do that. Our room rates start as low as $200 for the entire year. You can have branding on one of our rooms in the fashion capital of Arizona. Why wouldn't you want to put your name on one of our rooms? You can donate anything. You can become a corporate sponsor. If you work for a corporation, please spread the word about that. You can become a member. We have memberships here. Those memberships give you access to our events for free. They give you use of our photo studio, use of our maker space. There are so many cool things that you can get from that membership. That money goes to helping us keep on doing this. And, and nothing. I mentioned all of everything. That was everything. So helping us is helping you. We're helping the entire community. If you're into fashion, please do everything you can to help us spread the word. This is our year. It's been 3 years. We're proving the model. Here we are. We're making it happen. We've really done it. We've helped so many different people. We are now looking for some sort of corporate sponsor or some big donor to help us take it to the next level, to take a little bit of the monkeys off of Sherry and I's back. We do have a community helping us. We do have an amazing board. A couple of our board of directors are here tonight, right there. They help make sure everything is running smoothly at events, handling the treasury, handling everything that we do on the back end that you don't know about, but we need money to be able to do this. So any donation helps us, and we really appreciate it. And tonight, when you're done, feel free to wander off, it's fine, but if you want to talk to each other and meet each other for a few minutes, do that. That's what this place is all about. I've also got tons of portfolios. Look at them, because I'm OCD, so I literally have kept every moment of my life in some sort of notebook. It's all there. Thank you guys again so much for coming out. Thank you.